All right. Hello, 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 everybody. Oh, my lighting sucks. I'm so sorry about that. Oof. Oh. But anyways, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wealthy Trusty webinar. I'm super excited that you guys are here. So tonight we are going to be talking about all things dealing with trust. So you came here to learn how to actually protect your assets, how to grow wealth with your assets, or for your assets, and also how to protect your assets and preserve your wealth, right? So there's a lot of things that I need to teach you guys tonight, and I'm super excited that you guys are here because you're in the right place, because I want to put you in a position to where you actually are, one, creating generational wealth, but you're creating the right way. Because a lot of us, we are talking about, or saying these statements, oh, I'm creating generational wealth, but you don't have the tools in order to create generational wealth. So the number one tool that you need in order to create generational wealth is a trust, you guys. And so I'm going to teach you all things about trust in the next 90 minutes. Okay. So this is an interactive webinar. So we're going to go for 90 minutes. After the 90 minutes, then I am going to open up the floor for Q&A so that you can ask any and all questions that you might have on the information that we're going to be covering tonight. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Christina Yvette. I am a trust strategist, you guys. I have been a trustee for 9 years, okay, since 2015. The way that I became a trustee was by way of real estate. So way back in the days, I was a registered nurse and I was working in the hospital. I was working 12-hour shifts, 7 in the morning to 7 at night, 5 days a week. And what I noticed was that I was spending more time with my coworkers than I was spending at home with my 1-year-old baby. And it was so frustrating to me because I was a new mom. I was a young mom. My son was 1, and I had to make, ends meet. I had to put food on the table. And so I was literally living paycheck to paycheck. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was making $22 an hour. And at that time, the hospital that I started working at, it was short staffed. So I was working overtime and I wasn't, catching a break. So I told myself, I said, something has to change. I am already burnt out and I've only been in my career for 6 months. So something has to change. I need another stream of income. And so I was driving to work one day and I heard on the radio an ad, and the ad said, do you want to learn how to flip houses? And I'm like, yeah, I want to learn how to flip houses. So I end up signing up for this 3-day seminar. And in those 3 days, I learned more about real estate than I had in my entire life. So I signed up for mentorship. 6 months after that seminar, I bought my first property, you guys. It was a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Miami, and that's where I'm from. So it was in Miami, and I only bought it for $89,000. I end up selling that house for $235,000 after I fixed it up. And so when I realized that, I said, oh, okay, like money makes money. Like I didn't have to clock in and clock out in order to make the money on this house. But before any of that happened, my mentor told me, you need to put that house in and you need to put that property or that house in a trust. And I'm like, what is a trust? And so he's like, a trust is, it is an entity that's actually going to protect that property. You need to protect that property now because you're young, you're 25, and people are going to try to take advantage of you. So you never know what might happen, right? And so I was thinking, this makes sense because, one, I'm renovating the house so people could get injured, right? Somebody could step on a nail, somebody could get, hit with a piece of plywood. You never know. And so I didn't want to put myself in a position to where somebody could actually take my first property. This was like my newborn baby. And so I took his advice and I actually set up a trust. And I have been operating in trust ever since. So that one trust had led me to acquiring many properties and just having all of those properties in a trust. So with all that being said, what I'm going to teach you guys tonight is actually how to set up a trust, and the importance, why you actually need a trust, okay? So let's dive into the computer, you guys. And like I said, I'm going to go through this quick presentation. After we're done, you guys can ask me any and all questions that you have on, on the information that I'm covering, okay? So let's see here. All right, let's dive in, you guys. All right, so the first thing that I want to tell you guys, right, when we are talking about trust, right, a lot of us, we've heard the term trust, we've heard the term trust fund, right? And so we don't know what a trust is, to be honest, right? And so what I want to tell you guys is what a trust is, right? So a trust is a living, breathing entity, you guys, just like how you are a living, breathing entity, which means that a trust can do anything and everything that you can do as a natural person. So if you can go out and buy a house, a trust can buy a house. If you can go out and buy a car, a trust can buy a car. If you can build credit to an 850 score, a trust can also build credit, okay? So there's no real limitations to what a trust can do. So because a trust is a living, breathing entity, how does this entity, come into existence? Well, it comes into existence by way of a contract, okay? So a trust is a contract, you guys. So it's a contract on black and white on paper, and that is how this entity is created, okay? So because the trust is a contract, there are several different parts to this contract. There's two parts that I want you to be aware of. So the first part is the actual declaration of the contract, okay? So that is where you're declaring what it is and you're declaring what it is not. So you are declaring that it is a trust entity that you're creating in this contract. And you're declaring that it is not a corporation, that it is not an LLC, that it is not a nonprofit, and any of those other types of entities like joint ventures and stuff, okay? So that's the first part of the contract. The second part of the contract is the actual indenture, which is where you have your bylaws. Your bylaws are the rules and regulations of how you want this trust to operate. So we call those rules and regulations provisions, okay? So those are what we call trust provisions. And with your trust, you're going to have many of them because you're creating a legacy. And so you want to have a lot of provisions in there for the future generations, okay? So now that we know that the trust is a contract, right? There is an establishment date, right? So that's the day that you're actually creating the contract, okay? And that is what we quote unquote call the birthday of the trust, okay? Now, how long can you operate a trust for? Well, you can choose the term of how long you want this trust to exist for. You can choose anywhere between 1 to upwards of 100 years, okay? So it just depends on you, how long you want to operate it for or how long you want it to be. If you're intentional about building generational wealth, then you want to set it for 100 years because that means that you don't have to renew it until 100 years into the future, which means that whoever takes over after you, that person is going to be renewing the trust, okay? So now now that we know that a trust is a contract, there are several different parties involved in this contract. So who are the parties that are involved? Well, you have the grantor. The grantor is the creator of the trust. That is the individual that is actually putting the trust together, right? So that is who we call, so sometimes you'll hear these terms, right? Which you'll hear the term settler or trustor. Both of those terms are equivalent to grantor, okay? So that's the creator of the trust, the person that creates the trust for the benefit of somebody else. Who is that somebody else? That somebody else is the beneficiary, okay? And we'll talk about that in just a moment. So now, the second party involved is the trustee. The trustee is the controller of the trust, you guys. So that is who we call the fiduciary, okay? And so they are actually controlling the trust and operating it on a day-to-day basis for the benefit of the beneficiaries. So they get to actually manage the assets that are inside of the trust and grow the wealth that's inside of the trust, okay? So they're the person who has all the power and all the control in relation to the trust. The next party involved is the beneficiary. The beneficiary is the inheritor of the trust. That's the person who is actually going to be owning the assets of the trust in the future if the trust is terminated. But we don't want the trust to be terminated if we are intentional about building generational wealth. So we want to renew that trust every 100 years so that the wealth that we're creating stays inside of the trust and actually lasts the many generations that we want it to last, okay? So let's continue on. Now that you know the different parties to this contract, what you need to know is that there's several different types of trust, okay? There are hundreds of trusts out here. So you have to choose the best trust for you and your family. So what I want to do is I want to tell you or share the several different categories that trusts fall under, okay? So the first category that I want to tell you is express versus implied. So an express trust is a written trust, meaning that it's on black and white, it's on paper, it's on that contract style that we spoke about. The next type of trust is an implied trust. An implied trust is an oral trust. It's an oral agreement or contract, right? So you can make an oral contract between you and another individual, but I highly don't recommend it because sometimes those oral contracts don't hold up in court, okay? So now the next type of trust that I want to tell you about or categories is simple versus complex. So a simple trust is shorter in nature, so that means that it has less bylaws and provisions, and the trustees are required to give distributions to the beneficiaries. On the contrary to that, you have a complex trust. A complex trust is longer in nature, so that means that there's more rules, there's more provisions, there's more checks and balances with that type of trust. So because of that, the trustee is actually not required to give distributions to the beneficiaries because they want to build up the corpus. That means that they want to build up the funds that are in the trust fund, okay? So the next category that I want to tell you guys about is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So with a discretionary trust, it means that you have full discretion to be able to make decisions that are in the best interest of the trust, but they are not exactly inside of the contract, okay? So that is, allowing you to have more flexibility as things come up in the future. Versus non-discretionary means that the trustee cannot make any decisions on behalf of the trust if it's not written inside of the contract. So you have limitations, okay? So the next type of trust that I want to tell you about is statutory versus non-statutory. With a statutory trust, usually those are the trusts that are set up by attorneys. And that means that that type of trust, you can only use it in the state that you have set up that trust. Why? Because since it's a statutory trust, every state has laws. Those laws are what we call state statutes. So the attorneys go ahead and embed inside of the contract the state statutes, which means that you have limitations because you can only use it in the state that you set it up in because of the state statutes. So if you set it up in Georgia, you can only use it in Georgia. You can't use it in California or New York or Texas if you have property assets or business ventures that are in those states, okay? So you're limited. With a statutory trust, usually those types of trusts are registered with the county or the state, which means that the public is able to see that you actually have a trust, okay? So you don't want your trust to be a part of the public records or be easily searched on the public records because you want some type of privacy and what we call obscurity, okay? All right, so now the next type of trust with that category is non-statutory. So with a non-statutory trust, that means that it is actually operating in the jurisdiction of the common law. Okay, so it's not operating under the statutory jurisdiction. Okay, so that means that there's no state statutes or codes embedded inside of your contract. With this type of trust, you have the flexibility to use it in all 50 states as well as all of the US territories. So you have more flexibility with this type of trust. So with that being said, your trust is actually going to remain private because it's not going to be registered with your county or your state, okay? So that is definitely the type of trust that you want. So the next category that I want to tell you guys about is revocable versus irrevocable, okay? So let's dive into that. With a revocable trust, right? When we're referring to the term revocable or irrevocable, we are only talking about one particular party in this contract. That particular party is the grantor, okay? So for a revocable trust, the grantor has revocability. For an irrevocable trust, the grantor has irrevocability. So let's talk about that. With a revocable trust, the grantor is usually, the grantor and trustee are usually the same person, okay? Because the grantor and trustee are usually the same person, the grantor, they have the flexibility to make changes to the trust. So they can make amendments to the trust. They can remove the trustees and beneficiaries. They can remove assets that are inside of the trust, and they can terminate the trust whenever they want, okay? Because they have so much power and control, creditors of the grantor or the trustee can come after that trust, right? If creditors come after the trust, then that means that your assets are not fully protected, unfortunately. And if that trust was to end up in litigation, the judge can decide to pierce through a revocable trust, okay? If the judge decides to pierce through a revocable trust, that means that now you have to actually produce your trust in court. So you have to come with your trust indenture to court. And it's going to now be a part of the public records because the court cases are public, okay? So that is very challenging. On the contrary to that, you have an irrevocable trust. An irrevocable trust is when the grantor has no power and no control. So they create the trust, they give all the power and control to the trustee, okay? With this type of trust, they have irrevocability. The grantor has irrevocability. That means that they cannot terminate the trust if they wanted to. They cannot remove the trustees, the beneficiaries. They cannot make changes to the trust. And if they were to put assets into the trust, they cannot remove those assets. Because they have no power and control, creditors cannot come after an irrevocable trust, okay? So with that type of trust, your assets are fully protected. If that type of trust was to end up in litigation, the judge will decide not to pierce through that trust, which means that your trust is going to remain private and it's going to remain intact and it's going to remain, in like obscure. And that's what you want, right? So that type of trust is what we call a bulletproof trust, okay? So now let's go through the different steps that it takes in order to create a trust. The first thing that you want to determine is what type of trust you want to create. Remember, I just gave you a list of different categories that every single trust falls under, okay? So the type of trust that I recommend, which is what we call a bulletproof trust, is a trust that is express, so it's written. It is complex in nature. It is discretionary. It is non-statutory. And it is irrevocable. So it has to fall within those 5 categories in order for it to truly be a bulletproof trust that is impenetrable, okay? So with that being said, you have to do your due diligence and your research to see if that's the type of trust that you want to create. Let's move on to step 2. All right. So with step 2, what you want to do is you want to determine the trust name. So with the trust name, there's 2 things that I want you to consider. The first thing is, do not name the trust after yourself. If your name is John Doe, do not name the trust the John Doe Trust. Why? Because remember, you're trying to protect your assets here. So you don't want to name the trust after yourself, because then it becomes a dead giveaway that you're associated with that trust, because the trust is named after you. Okay? And that's the common mistake that I see out here in this industry. So you want to choose names that are not associated with you. Names like Legacy, Dynasty, right? That are not related. The second thing that I want you to consider is that you do not have to use the word trust in the actual name. So your trust is an entity, and people are going to know that it's an entity, but they don't have to know that it's a trust. So don't use the word trust in the actual name, okay? So now that you know what you want to name your trust, you're going to then appoint the different parties involved in the trust. So the first party that you want to appoint is the grantor. Remember, if you're setting up a bulletproof trust and it's irrevocable in nature, then you cannot be the grantor and the trustee. So you're going to have to choose someone to be your grantor on paper, and you're going to appoint yourself to be the trustee. Why? Because you want all the power and control of your trust. You're not going to give that power and control to anyone else. You're going to be able to manage the assets that are inside of the trust. So what you're going to do is you're going to appoint someone else to be your grantor. That person needs to be at least 18 years or older. That person can be a relative. That person can be a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, whoever is 18 years or older and actually able to notarize the trust with you, okay? So you are going to appoint a grantor. You're going to appoint yourself as the trustee of the trust. And then you have to list beneficiaries. Those beneficiaries are your children or your next of kin, whoever you want to inherit your assets, if the trust was to be terminated. And then the next party you're going to appoint is a successor trustee. A successor trustee is an individual that's going to take over after you if something happens to you. Meaning, if you expire, if you resign, or if you become incapacitated, the trust needs to continue to be operated. So you're going to choose a successor, which they're going to just pick up where you left off. Number 3, create the actual trust agreement. So remember, we said that a trust is a contract. So you actually have to create this contract. You got to put all those rules and regulations or those provisions inside of the trust. Some of these provisions we call spendthrift provisions. That is where you're controlling the money from the grave. That is the position that you want to put yourself in, to where you tell the trustees how you need them to manage the money, or you tell the beneficiaries what they're restricted to spend their distribution on, right? So that is extremely powerful. Once you are done creating the trust contracts, then you're going to move on to step 4, which is you notarizing the trust. The trust needs to be notarized by 2 parties, by the grantor and the trustee. So both of those individuals need to sign, and then they need to sign in front of a notary. The notary is then going to witness and put their seal on your contract. That then creates your legal entity. So now that your trust is legalized, you can go and operate the trust. The first thing that you want to do is you want to go ahead and open up a trust account with a bank. That is what we call your trust fund. So when you go to open up a trust account, right, there's several different things that you need. So the first thing is that you need an EIN. number for banking purposes. And then you also need to take your certificate of trust. The certificate of trust is proof of identity that the trust actually exists. So just like how you walk around with a driver's license, well, you need to walk around with a certificate of trust to prove that the trust is a legal entity. So you're going to bring two of those two things to the bank with you. So you can actually open up this trust account with a bank, a credit union, a brokerage, or any financial institution that offers trust accounts. The type of accounts that you can open up are a checking account, a savings account, a money market account, a cash management account, a brokerage account, okay? And so all of those accounts are, identified as trust accounts, right? Or trust funds. So now that you've opened up this trust fund, you need to fund the trust fund. You can fund it with whatever the bank's minimum is. Some of these banks, their minimum is $100. Some of these banks, their minimum is $300. Some of the brokerages, they have either a $0 minimum or their minimum is $3,000. It depends on the financial institution that you choose to establish a banking relationship with, okay? So now that you've opened up a bank account, what is the next thing that we need to do? Well, it's time to actually transfer your assets into the trust so that your assets are fully protected. So you want to go ahead and you're going to list your assets inside of the trust agreement, inside of the indenture, and then you have to do the legal part in order to move that asset into the trust. So let's just say that you have a primary residence, right? Your house. A lot of people don't know that even your house is on the public records, right? So it's very easy for people to be able to find out that you own that house. All they have to do is just go down to the county where this property is located, and they have to do a property search. And when they do the property search, all they have to do is put your first and last name, and every single property that you own in that county will show up, or vice versa. They just put the address, and all of your personal information, meaning your name, your address, your phone number, will show up. So you are on the public records. That puts you in a position to where you become what we call a low-hanging fruit for individuals who want to sue you, right? So you don't want that. So what you want to do is you want to protect that asset. You want to remove yourself as the owner of that asset, because now you're not going to be searched on the public records. So now what you need to do is, when you purchase that property, they gave you a deed, right? A warranty deed. So now you have to redeed that property, right? You have to redo the deed, and now you have to deed it over from your personal name into the name of the trust. You have to submit it down to the county, right? To the clerk of courts. And once you submit it to the county, they're going to process it, they're going to record it, and now they're going to show on their public records that the new owner of that property is the trust, and you're no longer the owner of that property. So now that the trust owns the property, that property is fully protected. So that's the position that you want to put yourself in. It's very important that you do this step, because I've seen it where individuals will set up trusts, but they never transfer their assets legally into the trust. And then they die, and then their family has to go to court in order to get their property, right? They had the right thing, but they never took the last step. So you actually have to put your assets in the trust in order for them to be protected. So let's continue on, you guys. All right, so the number one reason why you want to set up a trust is for asset protection and privacy. You have all of these assets. You need to protect them. So what can a trust actually protect you from? A trust can protect you from bankruptcy, from divorce, from foreclosure, from heavy taxation, from lawsuits, and from probate. So let's just touch on a few of these. Let's talk about divorce, because a lot of people don't realize that a divorce is a transfer of wealth. A divorce is a lawsuit between two spouses. And unfortunately, sometimes one spouse will end up with everything and the other spouse will end up with nothing. And so you want to protect yourself, because in the event of a divorce, because divorce is a lawsuit, everything that's in your personal name is going to be included in that divorce. Your 401k, your checking account, savings account, anything that's in your personal name, real estate, your vehicle, your debt, credit card debt, student loan debt, all of that stuff. So the way that a trust actually protects you from a divorce is because if you have a trust and you have assets inside of that trust, like a house, a car, $500,000 in the bank, in the name of that trust is a separate entity from you, which means that that trust cannot be pulled into that divorce, because that divorce is between those two living people. So you are not the trust is not you. So every single thing, meaning all of those assets, all of those properties, all of that cash that's inside of that trust is protected. That is the position that you want to put yourself in. The next thing I want to talk about is heavy taxation. A lot of us are giving away half of our income to the government. We're paying federal taxes, we're paying state taxes, we're paying city taxes, we're paying property taxes, especially in those states like New York and California. So what you want to do is utilize a trust to reduce your tax liability. Why? There's two methods that you can do, right? So let's just say that you're a W-2 employee. Per the IRS, you can donate up to 60% of your annual gross income to the trust, specifically a tax-exempt trust, which means that, let's just say that you make $100,000 for the year. You're going to be taxed on $100,000. But if you donate, which the maximum is 60%, which is 60,000. If you donate 60,000 to the trust, then you're only going to be taxed on 40%, which means that you're only going to be taxed on $40,000, which means that you're going to be saving a significant amount of money, which means that that money that you're going to be saving can now be allocated somewhere else, specifically other investments, which is going to put you in a position to where you can now multiply your money faster, acquire more assets, and actually, build the generational wealth efficiently and effectively. Why? Because you're not giving away half of your income. So you want to put yourself in a position like that to where you're reducing your tax liability and you are protecting yourself from heavy taxation with the government. Now, another thing that a trust actually avoids is a death tax and inheritance tax. A lot of us, we don't even know this. We do not know that the IRS taxes us on our way out. If you die, the IRS is going to tax you. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. The next one is lawsuits, right? And so let's just be real. We live in the United States of America. The United States of America is a sue-friendly country, you guys. Literally, everybody wants to sue you. Everybody wants to take your assets. So you have to constantly be defending yourself. Your neighbor wants to sue you. Your sibling wants to sue you. Your employer wants to sue you. Your customers and clients. So do not wait until you're getting sued to protect yourself from a lawsuit. Okay? So let's talk about this briefly. Let's just say that you're a business owner and you have an LLC. What does LLC stand for? It stands for Limited Liability Company. What does that mean? Well, that means that the company itself, the entity itself, has limited liability for any lawsuits or claims against it. So if the company itself only carries limited liability, who do you think carries the other half of that limited liability? That is you. So the authorized member, the owner of that company, carries another significant level of liability. So you have this LLC, and one of your clients decide that they want to sue you. But how are they going to know, who to go after? Well, all they have to do is go to the Secretary of State's website, do a business search, put in the name of the business, and up on the records, public records, your name pops up as the authorized member or manager of that company. So now, of course, they know who to go after, right? Because you're the owner. The same thing is the other way around. All they have to do is do a search of your name, and every single company that you own in that state comes up, depending on the state. So what you want to do is protect yourself from that, right? From being visible on the public records. But let's just say that that client sues you. So now the client dragged you to court, dragged your LLC to court. The judge decided that there was a judgment against your company. If your company is not able to fulfill that judgment, guess what happens? The judge can decide to pierce through the corporate veil, that little tiny bit of protection that you had with an LLC. They can pierce through it and go after the authorized member. That means that they can go after you. If they decide to go after you, guess what happens? The judge can seize your assets, like your house, your car, seize your, besides your assets, they can also garnish your wages and garnish your bank accounts. So all of that can happen if you're not fully protected. So the way that you protect yourself from this type of lawsuit as an entrepreneur and business owner is by actually setting up a business trust. Because now what's going to happen is you're going to remove yourself as the owner. You're going to add the trust as the new owner of that business. So now the trust is the authorized member. So now in the event that a client or customer tries to sue you, if the judge pierces through that corporate veil, they're going to go after the trust. If they decide to go after the trust, guess what? The trust takes 100% liability for that business. And you're nowhere to be found. Why? Because you're protected and all the liability is held on the trust. That is going to be your first layer of protection between you and the business. That is exactly what you need. So let's now let's move on to the last one, which is probate. Probate. So let me ask you a question, right? You have this house, and this is your primary residence where you live. And your primary residence is in your personal name. If you didn't wake up tomorrow and this house is in your name, how do you expect this house to be transferred from your name to whoever you want to inherit the house? Meaning your children, your son, your daughter, your spouse, whoever, right? So as of today, that's the situation, right? So how do you expect that to happen? Somebody could come off mute. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Just take a wild guess.
The trust.
Oh,
Put it in the verbiage and trust.
Right. So the question is, this house that's in your name, if you didn't wake up tomorrow, how do you think that that house is going to be transferred from your name to your child's name?
It won't be.
It's gonna
right.
go to probate. It's gonna go
Through probate. You're gonna have to go
Yeah.
through the court system.
Back to the state government.
Oh,
the court, the
guys,
court
you
gonna
guys
drag you out.
know. You guys already know. My goodness. Thank you for that. I appreciate the participation. That is 100% correct, you guys. Y'all was all correct. The government's
we
going to
know
take it.
because we've seen it happen.
Say that again.
We know because it's happened to all our families.
Yes, it has. It happens to my family too. Absolutely. So, the government's going to take it, right? Or it needs to go to court, right? The only way that that house that's in your personal name is going to be transferred from your name to your child's name is through a judge. And guess what? That judge doesn't know you. That judge doesn't know your son or your daughter. Do you think that they're going to do the best thing for your son or your daughter? Absolutely not. So, you want to avoid this whole entire process. You guys, probate is inevitable. We're all going to go through probate, unfortunately. Why? Because one day we're going to be called to heaven and we're going to have to leave all of this behind. So we're all going to go through probate. Unless there's only one way for you to avoid probate, which is if you set up a trust, the trust will not go through probate. That's the only way to avoid probate. There is no other way on this earth that you can avoid probate. So let's talk about the probate process. So let's just say, you guys, that you created a will, okay? So you created a will, and in your will, you said you want your daughter to have your house. You want your son to have your car, whatever, right? So you created this will. A will end up in probate. A will is a wish list. A will cannot own anything. So literally, when you're setting up this will, you're literally saying, I wish my daughter will get my house. I wish my son will get the $500,000 in my bank. You're just wishing. There's no guarantee. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't even happen that way. So let's just say you set up a will because you thought a will was good enough, right? And you got assets. You got this house that you live in. You have a car. You have $500,000 in the bank, right? You have all of these things. But let's just say you got debt too, right? You got student loan debt, credit card debt, right? So now, let's just say you didn't wake up tomorrow. Do you know what's going to happen? Well, because you didn't create your own estate, the state where you're a legal resident meaning let's just say you're a resident of Georgia, that state is going to create an estate for you. So if your name is John Doe, then the state of Georgia is going to create the John Doe estate, right? And so what's happening is your children are experiencing a loss, right? They're absolutely devastated because they just lost the most important person in their life. But now, unfortunately, because we didn't have our affairs in order, they're going to be dragged into probate. So now instead of them grieving, now they're going to have to fight for mom and dad's house, or they're going to have to fight each other in court. So what is going to happen, right? So the state just created your estate, the John Doe estate. So honestly, you're going to have an estate either way. You either create it now while you're living, or you wait for the state to do it for you. So what does that process look like? Well, if they create the John Doe estate, now the judge is going to place all of your assets inside of that estate. So your house is going to go in there, your car is going to go in there, your bank account with the $500,000 is going to go in there, okay? So now your estate needs to be represented by a probate attorney and needs to be represented in probate court. So what is the first thing that they do in probate court? Well, the judge is going to actually pay off your debt. All of those liabilities, that's the first thing that we do within a state. Pay off your debt. So, and those creditors are going to come after your estate. So they're going to pay off Medicare, Medicaid, the hospital bills, you know, when you was in ICU, the nursing home, the student loans that you have for 30 years, the credit card debts that you racked up at the end. All of that is going to be taken out of your estate. That's the first thing. The second thing is the probate attorney needs to get paid. So now attorney fees come out. Then the probate court needs to get paid. Now court fees come out. So whatever is left over after all of that has been taken care of is what your children get. Your children literally get the leftovers. If there's anything left over, which I've seen so many times that unfortunately, the judge decides to sell your house in order to pay off your medical bills, in order to pay off your credit card, in order to pay off, you know, your student loan debt. And so your daughter and your son are fighting to keep mom and dad's house, and they can't because the judge decided to sell it. You don't want that to happen. Why? Because this entire process can actually be avoided. You can legitimately avoid probate by setting up your own trust estate now while you're living, and by putting your assets inside of that trust. So that house that you owned is going to go inside the trust. That car that you got paid off and you got the title to is going to go inside the trust. That money that you have in the bank is going to go inside of the trust. Because now the trust is going to avoid probate, right? That's the only way for you to actually avoid this entire thing. And why do you want to do this? Last time I checked, you know that you want your children to receive an inheritance. You know that you want them to inherit your house. You know that you want them to inherit the $500,000 that you have in the bank. So why would you drag them through probate if you already know that it's theirs? So now let's look at this process if we set up a trust, right? So now let's just say you set up a trust. and you placed your house in there, you placed your car in there, you placed the trust now has a bank account, and you put $500,000 of cash in there. All of those assets are owned by the trust. And let's just say you didn't wake up tomorrow. Guess what happens? Your successor takes over. So whoever you appointed to take over after you, when you expire, that person picks up where you left off. Your children are the beneficiaries of your trust. Your children are going to continue to reap the benefits of your assets and the money that you've left behind. And this entire situation, called the probate process, is avoided because you decided to get your affairs in order, because you decided to create your estate while you were alive, because you decided to protect your assets from the court. Because they will literally auction off your property at the court steps. So you decided that. And guess what happens? That debt that you had, meaning the nursing home, meaning the hospital bills that you racked up at the end, meaning the credit card bills, all of that debt dies with you. Why? Because those creditors can only come after you as the person. Those creditors cannot come after your trust. So they're not going to touch that $500,000 of cash. They're not going to touch that property. That is the situation that you want to put yourself in. That's the situation that you want to put your family in. So probate can be definitely avoided. Okay, let's move on, you guys. We got a couple more slides and then we're going to wrap it up, and I'll answer any and all of your questions. All right, so let's talk about the wealth building formula, you guys. This is my absolute favorite slide in this whole entire presentation. So this is what we call the wealth building formula. We have three pillars here. We have structure, we have credit, and we have invest. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is structure. Structure is so vitally important, you guys. You have to be structured the right way. If you're not structured the right way, you have to get restructured, okay? So what we recommend is that you have multiple trusts within your structure. Why? Because as we learned earlier in this call, there's different trusts that do different things. There's hundreds of different types of trusts. So you do not want to put all of your eggs in one basket, which means that you don't want to put all of your assets in one trust, right? So what you want to do is you want to have multiple trusts within your structure. The three trusts that we recommend is a business trust, a family trust, and a tax-exempt trust. So we'll dive into all of these three trusts. So the first trust is a business trust. With this business trust, this is for individuals who are business owners and entrepreneurs and investors, okay? And so with this type of trust, you could utilize it in two different ways. The first way that you can utilize it is as a holding company. So that means that it's going to be non-operational and that it's going to be utilized to hold other legal assets or legal entities. So those entities are positions in your C Corp and S Corp and being an authorized member or a manager in your LLC. So your LLC is going to have all the employees, products, and services, and it's going to be owned by your business trust, right? So that's one way as a holding company. The other way that you can use it is as a business. Why? Because if you actually use it as a business, you can do that, right? So instead of you going out and going through the Secretary of State website to go ahead and set up an LLC, right? With an LLC, you have a lot of restrictions. One, the state can shut you down at any point in time. Let's just be honest, right? Another thing is that if you don't do that annual report, guess what? Your LLC expires, you can't operate it, and then they'll dissolve it. Okay, so if you set up an LLC, that is what we call a statutory entity. You can only use it in the state that you set it up in, right? A lot of people think they can use it all over. No, right? So you can only use it in the state that you set it up in. And you're giving them the jurisdiction to be able to regulate your LLC. So if you want to run a business, you can run a business as a business trust. And then now you can set it up for 100 years and you never have to constantly renew your company every 12 months. So that's one example, okay? So now let's talk about the business trust. Let's just say that you decided to use it as a holding company. Remember, I gave you that example earlier, right? What you want to do is you want to remove yourself from the Secretary of State. So you want to add the business trust as the new owner of that business. Why? Because that's going to protect you. That's going to be your first layer of protection between the company and you, right? You need a middleman. Let the middleman be the trust. Let the trust take all the liability for that business, okay? So now that the trust is taking all the liability because the trust is acting as a holding company and owns that LLC, what happens? Well, let's just say that the LLC is generating $100,000. That $100,000 can be distributed, right? Because it's a pass-through entity to the business trust. So now let's just say that that money, that $100,000 just went to the business trust, right? So now what is going to happen? Well, one thing that I actually love about these type of entities is that you're going to spend the money first and you're going to be taxed on the leftovers. And I'm going to say that again because it's absolutely profound. You're going to spend the money first and you're going to be taxed on the leftovers. So what is the goal? Well, the goal is for you to get deductions on your operating expenses. What does it cost in order for you to operate that entity? Well, let's just say out of the $100,000 that came in, it cost you about $30,000 to run the business trust. So now you can actually deduct $30,000 from that overall income, and now you have $70,000 left that's going to be taxed. Well, the business trust is a for-profit entity. It's required to file taxes. It's required to file the Form 1041 every single year, right? And so we as natural persons, we are required to file a 1040. The trust is required to file a 1041. That is significant because the IRS sees the trust as a separate entity from you versus an LLC. Where does the LLC go? The LLC goes on your 1040. The LLC is added as a Schedule C. The LLC is not seen as a separate entity unless you choose a different tax structure or classification. So with that being said, now what's going to happen is you got $70,000 that's left that you got to pay taxes on. Well, the taxes that are usually required for a trust fall anywhere between 10% upwards of 39%. That's the percentage that you have to pay for a trust, you guys. Okay, so we don't want to pay 39%, right? So what is it that we want to do? Well, the beautiful thing about a trust is that in order to what a trust can do is a trust can actually avoid paying those taxes by distributing that money to the beneficiary. Okay, so that means that instead of the trust paying taxes on the $70,000, the trust decided to distribute the $70,000 to the beneficiary. And then now the tax liability for the business trust is zero, okay? So the trust doesn't owe any taxes anymore. That $70,000, right? That went to the beneficiary. What we do is we structure it to where the family trust is the beneficiary of the business trust. Why? Because if you're a business owner and entrepreneur, guess what? The money that you need in order to sustain your family is coming from your business. So that's why we actually appoint the family trust as the beneficiary of the business trust. So now that $70,000 has been distributed to your family trust. So now the family trust received income. received 70,000, right? So now we're all done paying taxes for the business trust. The business trust is at a 0% tax liability, okay? Now we have $70,000 in the family trust. What is it that we get to do? Remember, 70,000 just came in. We get to spend the money first, and then we're taxed on the leftovers. So that is what you're going to do. You're going to spend the money first, and then you're going to be taxed on the leftovers. So what does it cost in order to operate your family? Think about it, right? You got rent or mortgage, you got property taxes, you got maintenance, you have utilities, you have insurance policies, you have gasoline, groceries, all kind of stuff, okay? So let's just say out of the 70,000, it costs 60,000 in operating expenses for the family trust, right? And so now you've deducted the 60,000, and now you have $10,000 that's left. So now you're gonna have to pay 10% on that $10,000, which is only $1,000, right? Only $1,000. Or what you can do is you can reduce that even further by donating to your tax-exempt trust. And so if you donate to your tax-exempt trust, then now on the family trust level, your tax liability becomes 0 or very little. And then now that money, let's just say it's the 10,000, now that money has gone to the tax-exempt trust. The tax-exempt trust has a lot of fancy names, you guys. You can call it a ministry, you can call it a church, you can call it a faith-based organization. So there's a lot of different terms that you can use for the tax-exempt nonprofit trust. This trust, it doesn't pay federal taxes. So you are done paying federal taxes with this structure, as long as the money that came in was received as a donation or a tithe. Anything that is coming in, if it's not labeled as a donation or a tithe, then anything over $5,000, you do have to pay taxes on. So that money that came in, right? What can you do with it? Well, you can do whatever philanthropic endeavors you want. If you have any charities, if you have any ministries, right, that you want, right, any missions, and you can also do investments. You could pick up real estate. You could invest in crypto, stocks, bonds, you know, put in an insurance policy. The sky's the limit on what you can do with this $10,000, okay? So you can also use that in order to build wealth. So now, why is it that this particular entity is exempt from paying federal taxes? It's because one is designated as what we call a 508c1a. If it's designated as a 508c1a entity, there is a separation between church and state, which means that the government, if you're operating this type of entity, the government cannot force you to pay taxes. It's a mandatory exception to not having to file for a 501c3. So you're automatically exempt from paying federal taxes, as long as you meet the criteria. And you can qualify to be exempt from state taxes, city taxes, county taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, and any other types of taxes. Capital gains taxes, all kinds of taxes. So this is the type of entity that you want to use if you want to donate your W-2 income from from your wages, right, into the trust. So the IRS will allow you to donate up to 60%. So you can't do 61, 62, 60% is the max. And for other entities, it's 25%. So you can actually save a lot of money with this type of entity and then invest that money into businesses, into whatever you want, flip it. So now let's move on and let's go to the second pillar, which we're talking about credit. So one is because you have a nonprofit within your structure, you can apply for nonprofit grants. So you want to put yourself in a position to where you are going to be using OPM. other people's money. Okay, that's what you want to do. So the next thing that you can do is you can build business credit for the business trust. How? Well, with an LLC and corporations, we build business credit off of the EIN. So if the business trust is issued an EIN, then you can build credit off of that EIN for the business trust. That's what you want to do. You want to leverage a second credit profile, because right now you're just depending on your personal credit, right? And so with your personal credit, you have limitations. What are the limitations? You have lower lines of credit. And if you start to use that money, your score is going to drop because your utilization is high. So what you want to do is put yourself in a position to where you are going to leverage a second credit profile. That second credit profile is the credit that you're going to build with the business trust. So with the business trust is going to build this business credit. You know, the score is anywhere between 1 to 100, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to qualify for lines of credit and credit cards. And so you get higher lines of credit. So on the personal side, you might get 10,000, but on the business side, you'll get 50,000. So that's the position that you want to put yourself in. You want to put yourself in a position to where you're using OPM. Use the bank's money, because then what's going to happen when you get these lines of credit and credit cards is you can liquidate it and you can use it in order to acquire assets. That is what you're going to do. That is the strategy. Please do not think that you're going to build a massive amount of wealth using your W-2 income. No, you need to leverage the banks and you need to use their money, okay? Because they're leveraging you and they're using your money. So now that you know that you have to build business credit with the business trust, let's move on to the last pillar, you guys. The last pillar is invest. And this is my favorite thing to talk about. Talk about assets, right? So there's 2 assets that I recommend. The first one is an index universal life insurance policy, and the second one is real estate. Let's talk about the IULs, okay? So an index universal life insurance policy, we shorten it up and we use the acronym or the abbreviation IUL, okay? So with this type of policy, right? A lot of people think that life insurance is supposed to be used when they're dead. But in all actuality, life insurance is supposed to be utilized when you are living. Why? Because there's so many living benefits to life insurance, right? In these policies, there's built-in living benefits that you need to be using now. So let's talk about it, right? So the first thing that I want to bring to your awareness is with this type of policy, it's protected, so it's not going to end up in probate, all right? Or, you know, if anything happens with the government, they can't force you to take out your money from the life insurance policy. The second thing is that it's tax-free. So the money that you're paying, the premium every single month, you're building up that money tax-free, okay? So the next thing is that your cash that you have inside of this policy is liquid. You could take it out at any point in time, okay? This policy is seen as an asset, okay? So let's talk about it a little bit further. So the word index, you see it's inside of the name of the policy. So what does index mean? Well, it's actually referring to an indice. An indice is one of the indices that we have in the stock market. So in the stock market, we have several different indices. We have the Dow Jones, we have the NASDAQ, and we have the S&P 500. So your policy is going to be tracking an index, okay? And so what happens? Well, with this policy, there's a bucket in there, right? Where you're going to be building cash value, okay? Not every single policy is the same. So you are building cash value with whole life policies and with IUL policies, okay? So what does that mean? That means that when you're paying your premium, let's just say you're paying $100, right? A portion of that money is going to go to the insurance fees. Let's just say it's like $10, $15. The rest of the money is going to go into your cash value. So $85 is going to your cash value, $15 is going into insurance fees. The majority of your money is going into cash value. But what's happening with that cash value, you guys? It's building compound interest. How? Well, what's happening is the insurance company is going to mirror the stock market. It's going to mirror the S&P 500. So whatever the S&P 500 is doing, they are going to match that and give you that return on your cash value. So let's just say that the stock market is doing 8%. The S&P 500. The S&P 500 is doing 8%. Well, guess what's going to happen? Whatever you have in your cash value, you're going to earn an 8% return. The insurance company is going to match it and give you an 8% return, compound interest on your cash value. That is extremely powerful, you guys. That is where you are going to be now building wealth with a tax-free vehicle, right? It's super, super, super profound, okay? So now what's going to happen? Well, what you want to do is you want to have the trust be the owner of your policy, be the payer of the premiums of your policy, and be the beneficiary of your policy. And you, as the living person, is going to be the insured. Why? Because if anything happens to you, that death benefit is going to go to the trust. So you have a death benefit associated with that policy. Let's just say your death benefit is $2 million. Well, if you didn't wake up tomorrow, that $2 million is going to the trust. So that is extremely important, okay? So now what you want to do is you actually want to utilize this vehicle in an unconventional way. How and why? Well, the way that you're going to do that is by paying yourself first. This is a concept that is on another level. And this is going to require you to have a mindset shift. In order for you to build wealth efficiently and effectively, it's going to require you to shift your mind. Because the way that you have been doing things is not the right way. It's not the way that is going to lead to your assets being protected, or you sustaining the generational wealth, or you preserving the generational wealth, okay? So it's going to require you to take a mindset shift. Why? Let's talk about it, right? So let's just say that you're a W-2 employee and you got paid today. Today is Friday, it's payday, and you got paid. What is the first thing that happens? The first thing that happens is the IRS takes their withholdings. The IRS does tax withholdings on your paycheck. The second thing that happens is Medicare does withholdings. Then Social Security does withholdings. Then you do a 401k contribution. That means that 4 organizations have gotten paid or have deducted from your paycheck before you even see your paycheck. So now you receive a direct deposit for your money, right? So you're literally getting whatever is left over. So you receive the leftovers from your paycheck, and it is direct deposited where? It's direct deposited into your bank, right? So it's direct deposited into Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, right, into your checking account. So you just got paid today, boom, let's just say you got $5,000. So now that $5,000 has gone into your checking account. And what is the first thing that happens, right? Well, that money, right, that's inside of your bank account, you have to understand, you're making the banks rich. Why? Because they're leveraging the money. They're leveraging your paycheck. To do what? So you're helping the banks get rich. Why? Because they're leveraging your money to give out student loans, to give out car loans, to give out mortgages, to give out credit cards, right? And they're earning an enormous amount of interest, right? 10%, 30%, 50%, right? And they're getting richer. And so a lot of people think that with the banks, that's how they really, that's their largest asset, that's how they get rich, right? But in actuality, with the bigger banks, their number one asset, you guys, is life insurance. It's called a BOLI, bank-owned life insurance. That is their number one asset. So if the bank's number one asset is life insurance, do you think that your number one asset should also be life insurance? I just want to plant that seed because it is important. So now that you have put your $5,000 into the bank, your paycheck, okay? Your paycheck just got direct deposited into your checking account, right? How much are you going to get from that? Well, literally, how much does the bank give you? They give you 0.00002%, right? They literally give you nothing off of the money that you are depositing and putting into the bank, right? So the $5,000 came in. What is the first thing that you do? You pay your rent, you pay your mortgage, you put gas in your car, you pay your utilities, you put, you get groceries. There's all these things that happen. So when that $5,000 comes in and you decided to pay everybody else, what are you left with? You're literally left with $800 or less. And what are you going to do? You're going to let that money just sit inside of your checking account. That is the definition of the rat race. That is you literally being on that hamster wheel, you guys. Why? Because we've decided to subscribe to working 40 hours a week for 40 years and retiring when we're 65. And so now it's going to require us to shift our mind to unconventional ways of doing things in order for us to get out of the rat race, in order for us to get off that hamster wheel, in order for us to see a new way of doing things. So this is the way that you pay yourself first. Instead of once that money comes in, that direct deposit, right? It comes into your checking account. It comes into Bank of America, right? Instead of you leaving it like that, you're now going to create your own bank. You're going to create a private money bank for yourself. And so what's going to happen is when that $5,000 hits your checking account, instead of you paying your rent, instead of you paying your utilities, instead of you paying, your mortgage and buying groceries and all this stuff, first, what you're going to do is you're going to take that money and you're going to deposit it into your life insurance policy. You're going to deposit it into your IUL. And then what's going to happen is your cash value is going to go up by $5,000. And guess what? The carrier, the life insurance company, they're going to match the S&P 500. And if the S&P 500 is doing 9%, guess what? You're going to make 9% returns on that $5,000. And you want to do it that way versus the other way, which is spending the whole $5,000 and only having $800 left to invest, and then only putting the $800 into your life insurance policy. What would you rather do? Would you rather make 9% off of $5,000, or would you rather make 9% off of $800 leftovers? I would rather make 9% off of 5,000. But guess what? If you put that $5,000 in there, you need to pay your bills. So what does that process look like? Well, that $5,000 is going to go inside of your cash value, right? And it's going to earn the 9%. And what you're going to do is you're going to request a loan from the carrier. The carrier sees your life insurance policy as an asset. They're going to look inside of your policy and they're going to say, yeah, John has $5,000. We can lend him $4,800 right now. Liquidity. And they're going to direct deposit it into your bank account, $4,800. And guess what you're going to do? Pay your bills. You're going to pay the mortgage, grocery, put gas in the car so you can make it to work tomorrow. But guess what? That money, that $4,800 came from the life insurance company's bank account. That came from their reserves. It did not come from your policy. Your $5,000 is still sitting inside of your policy, earning compound interest as if you never touched it. And you just borrowed $4,800 from them so that you can cover your bills this month. That is extremely profound because now you're able to build wealth efficiently and effectively. And that $4,800 that you borrowed, you never have to pay back that loan because that loan is going to be deducted from your death benefit. Remember, with your life insurance policy, you have a death benefit. So when you kick the bucket, guess what? Your trust is going to be paid $2 million. So they're just going to deduct that $4,800 from the $2 million. So this is the way that you want to pay yourself first. All right. So now let's move on to real estate. Real estate is intangible asset. Real estate is definitely what you want within your formula as well, okay? With real estate, right, the thing that I love about real estate is that a trust can own a house. A trust can get a mortgage for a home. A trust can qualify for the mortgage. A trust can also get a home equity line of credit. So how does a trust actually qualify for a mortgage? Well, you can provide bank statements or you can provide tax returns to show that the trust is able to take a mortgage out on this house. What type of mortgage do I recommend? Well, I recommend that you get a DSCR loan. DSCR loan is for investment purposes. It's for investment properties, and they will lend you, these mortgage companies will lend you up to 80% of the purchase price. So now let's just say you're getting a fourplex, right? You're getting 4 doors under one roof. And you're getting 80% of the money from a DSCR loan. Where are you going to get the other 20%? Well, remember we are building business credit. We're building business credit with our business trust. So what you're going to do is you're going to leverage that credit. You're going to get a credit card for the business trust. Let's just say that that credit card is, you get qualified for $50,000. Well, now what you can do is you can then use that credit card. So what you can do is you can strip the credit card and you can use it as a down payment for real estate. So now what's going to happen is there's two ways that you can do this, right? So the first is with that credit card, right? You're going to strip it, the $50,000, and the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to put it into your IUL policy. Why? Because now your cash value is going to go up by $50,000, and now you're going to be earning compound interest off of that cash value. And now you're going to borrow it back out. Let's just say they give you, $48,000. Now you're going to utilize that $48,000 as the down payment for the real estate. So now you got a DSCR loan for 80%, and now the 20% was covered by your credit card. So now you covered 100% of the purchase price using OPM, using other people's money, using the mortgage company's money, using the bank's money. You did not come out the pocket at all. So this just became a 0% or zero down purchase in the name of the trust, right? You want to put the trust in a position to where it is self-sustaining. You want to be generating cash flow for the trust. You don't want to be pouring in your W-2 income into the trust. So you want to be intentional and actually acquire assets for the trust. So now this fourplex, 4 doors under one roof, that you got is generating cash flow. Let's just say you're making $10,000 a month, right? Off of this fourplex. What's going to happen? What is the first thing that you're going to do? The first thing that you're going to do is that $10,000, you're going to funnel it into your IUL. That's cash flow. You're going to funnel that money into your IUL. Then you're going to borrow it back out. And then you're going to pay the credit card and your mortgage. And whatever is left over is going to be held in the trust as income, as cash flow. And so that is what you want to do. Utilizing this wealth building formula, that is going to put you in a position to where you're going to be acquiring liquid assets, tangible assets for the trust, and have the trust sustaining itself. Let's move on. We're almost done, you guys. So how do you transfer your wealth? We never ask ourselves this question. We never ask I don't hear anybody walking around here talking about how am I going to transfer my wealth? But that is a question that you need to ask yourself. How am I going to protect my wealth? How am I going to transfer my wealth? How am I going to preserve my wealth? You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say it again because it's so important. You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is what you want, right? So that is what we call, that is the definition of stewardship, you guys. So stewardship is where you are going to be a good steward of your wealth, right? You're going to direct the wealth in the right way, right? You're going to help grow the wealth. Okay, so that is what you want. You want to be a good steward of your wealth. And the way that you're going to do that is by way of setting up a trust. Okay, versus the contrary, which is what you're doing right now. You're operating in ownership versus stewardship. Ownership is where you're walking around here being the proud owner of this house. You're all over the public records, and tomorrow somebody could snatch your house away from you. So you have to understand, one, that you need to get away from ownership, and two, that all you really want is control. Why? Because remember, that house that you live in right now, that house that your children live in right now, that house that you work so hard for to purchase, that house is going to outlive you. Why? Because if you don't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. That house is not going anywhere. So you have to understand that what you truly want is control of that house while you are living. And you can do that by way of a trust. Why? Because the trust is going to be the owner of the property, and you're going to control the trust, which means that you control the assets that are inside the trust, which means that you control that property. You control that house. You can do whatever you want to that house. You can sell it, rent it, whatever it is that you want to do, right? That's what you want. That's the goal. So how do you transfer your wealth? Well, let's just say that you have a trust, right? The trust is going to generate 100 trust certificates. The 100 trust certificates is going to be equivalent to 100% of beneficial interest in the trust. So trust certificate units are short for TCUs. TCUs stand for trust certificate unit. TCUs are just like stock certificates. So you know how stock certificates represent ownership, interest in a company. TCUs represent beneficial interest in a trust. So with a trust, because it's a living entity, we don't say that the beneficiaries own it. The beneficiaries are having interest in the trust. So let's just say that the trust, right, you just created the trust, and it's going to go ahead and create the 100 trust certificates, right? Now what you need to do is you need to distribute those trust certificates. So let's just say you have 5 beneficiaries, right? And you want to distribute an equal amount of trust certificates. So that means that I'm going to issue you 20 TCUs. I'm going to issue John 20 TCUs. I'm going to issue Sally 20 TCUs, right? And so now everyone has equal interest. Let's just say that the trust is worth, the net worth of the trust is $1 million. Well, if I have 20 TCUs, that's equivalent to $200,000 of that ultimate net worth of the trust. So if the trust is terminated tomorrow, guess what? I'm going to receive $200,000 because I'm a beneficiary and I have 20 TCUs in this trust. That's how you're going to transfer your wealth. Now let's talk about how you're going to preserve your wealth. Because, like I said at the beginning of this call, I see you and I hear you walking around here talking about you're building generational wealth. But you don't have the tools to build generational wealth. Why? Because you're so focused on making the money. You're so focused on making the 6 figures. You're so focused on acquiring the house and the car and the jewelry. You're so focused on that, but you're not focused on getting the tools that you need in order to preserve the wealth, right? Yeah, you're generating money, but you're not building generational wealth because there's 2 tools that you need in order to build generational wealth. The 2 tools that you need, whoever is touching my screen, can you please stop? The 2 tools that you need is a trust and a life insurance policy. If you don't have those tools, you're not building generational wealth. How many times have we seen it to where famous families, celebrities, athletes, right? To where one, their wealth disappears in their lifetime. They blew all the money. Or the money that they generated or that they made doesn't even last the first or second generation. Do you know why that happens? Because they didn't have the tools. Because they didn't have a trust. And because they didn't have life insurance policies. Let's just be honest. So this is how it works, you guys. You have to understand that with your trust, right? Your trust has many assets. Your trust has real estate. Your trust has cars. Your trust has cash, right? And those are all tangible assets. But your trust also has a human asset. That human asset is you. Remember, you're the MVP, right? So you're the trustee, the person who is operating the trust. You are what we call human capital, right? You and the beneficiaries, the trustee and the beneficiaries. Why? Because if anything happens to you, the person who's operating the trust, guess what? The trust is going to suffer a loss. The trust is going to be devastated. The trust needs to then be compensated for that loss. So that means that the trust is going to take out a policy on you. You are going to be the insured. The trust is going to take out a life insurance policy on you, on the beneficiaries, and all the future beneficiaries. Why? Because if anything happens to you, that trust needs to be compensated. So let's just say your death benefit is $3 million. That $3 million, if you didn't wake up tomorrow, that $3 million is going to go straight to the trust fund. And now the trust is going to be replenished with $3 million. So that is going to ensure that the wealth that you've created, the wealth that is in your estate, the wealth that you have left as a legacy is going to be preserved. So the trust is actually inside of the indenture, right? The trust is actually instructed to take out a life insurance policy on the trustees, which is you, the beneficiaries, and the future beneficiaries, right? Because if anything happens, the trust needs to be compensated. So let's just say that there is a new beneficiary that is born into the trust. When that baby is 30 days old, the trust is going to take out a policy on that 30-day-old baby. That baby is called a trust fund baby. We need to normalize trust fund babies in our community, you guys. It's so important. A trust fund baby is a good thing. So that 30-day-old baby has now gotten an IUL policy, and the trust is going to pay the premium. And now that policy is going to earn compound interest from birth. So now let's just say fast forward into the future, that trust fund baby is now 18 years old. What does that trust fund baby need at 18 years old? Well, that trust fund baby is going to go to college, right? So you got tuition, books, housing, and that trust fund baby needs a car, their first car, right? So let's just say that the trust fund baby went down to the dealership. You know, they pulled the credit. That trust fund baby got into a car loan for $30,000, you know, paying 15% interest on this vehicle. And now they signed up for $900 payments every single month. That could very well be the process. Or because that trust fund baby is a beneficiary inside of a trust, what can happen is that trust fund baby can go to the trust and ask for a loan. So trustees and beneficiaries can receive loans from the trust and can give loans to the trust, which is a beautiful thing. Why? Because now that trustee is going to give a check for $30,000 and hand it over to that beneficiary. And now, instead of that beneficiary going to the dealership and getting out this loan, now they're going to pay cash for their car. And then they're going to go back and actually make a car payment to the trust. And let's just say there's this car payment is $350. Just imagine that, right? They pay the trust $350. And let's just say that the trust is collecting a little 2% interest. That's good, right? That's a benefit. That's a win-win situation. Versus the beneficiary giving $900 to the dealership, making the dealership rich, right? So that is a beautiful process and one of the benefits of, you know, being a beneficiary into a trust. So now the beneficiary is paying $350 a month to the trust fund. Let's just say that that beneficiary decides to default on that. Let's just say a year later, that beneficiary is 19 and they're like, I don't want to pay the trust anymore. Well, guess what? That was a risk-free loan. Why? Because the money did not come from the trust fund. The money actually came from that trust fund baby's life insurance policy. So the process that took place was once that trust fund baby requested a loan from the trust, the trustee went to the insurance carrier and requested a loan from the cash value, right? And so the cash value is just collateral. They do not take the money out of the cash value, remember. So now that money actually came from the life insurance company's reserves from their bank. They did a direct deposit for $30,000 into the trust fund. The trustee wrote a check and a promissory note and handed it over to the beneficiary. The beneficiary went and purchased the car. That was a risk-free loan because that loan doesn't need to be paid back. That loan is going to be taken out of the death benefit. So when that beneficiary, that trust fund baby, when that trust fund baby expires, guess what happens? That death benefit of $5 million goes straight to the trust. That is how you preserve your wealth. That is what you need to do. You need the tools. A trust and life insurance. Cash value life insurance policies, to be specific. Not the term life, not that other stuff that they sell you out here, okay? It's not all of it is the same. It has to be structured the right way. These are the books that I recommend, you guys. I recommend What Would the Rockefellers Do? That is a really good book that teaches you about the marriage between a trust and a life insurance policy. The second book is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. That is a really good book that teaches you guys about trusteeship, how to run a trust. The next one is Family Wealth. It teaches you how to run your business like a family, run your family like a business. You have to understand, you have a whole structure in your family. You have people in different positions. You got a CEO, you got a CFO, you got a COO. You need to be running your family like a business. We call it a family office, and that's what you'll learn in that book. And then the last book is The Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you about the different types of trust. Remember, I told you there's hundreds of different types of trust. You got to choose the right one for you. I recommend that you get a bulletproof trust. Let's move on. So this is a quick little video that I want to show you about a trustee that actually took action on the information that I shared tonight.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while. And, there are a number of people offering trust these days. And, I guess that's the big thing, don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions. Things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
All right, guys. So what you need to do is take action on the information that I shared with you guys tonight, because it could be your new form of doing business, okay? And actually, one, making profit, and two, it could solve a lot of your problems dealing with asset protection and saving on taxes, okay? So what you want to do is you want to treat this like a big business. You want to treat this like an Amazon, like a Google, like a Facebook. You don't want to treat this like some small little mom and pop shop. This is not what that is, okay? So you want to take action on the information that I shared tonight, you guys. So let's go ahead and work together. I do have a program that teaches you step by step on this information, okay? So one, the first one is you can do it yourself, right? So with the do it yourself, what you can do is we have a course, and the course has 43 video modules. And so you actually get the 3 templates that I spoke about today. You get the 3 trusts: the business trust, the family trust, and the nonprofit tax exempt trust. We provide you with the templates. We break down every single paragraph in the actual templates. And so you have the video modules where you can watch the videos, and then you can start customizing your trust, okay? We give you lifetime access to the course. You also get resources and ebooks. So one, you can get an ebook you can get ebook versions of the books that I just mentioned. Some of those books alone are valued at over $800 if you go on Amazon. So we give you the electronic version absolutely included in our program. Plus, we give you all the resources that you need in order to actually start to operate your trust. So we show you trusteeship and how to actually operate your trust. That's the most important thing, because a lot of people don't know what to do. So if you want to go open up a bank account, we provide you with the documents. If you want to go ahead and open up a brokerage account, we provide you with the documents. If you want to go ahead and transfer your house into a trust, we give you the templates. If you want to transfer your car into the trust, we give you the templates. We show you every single thing that you need in order to set up your trust estate the right way. We also have a private community, you guys, with over 600 trustees. And so you get access to our private Facebook group called the Wealthy Trustee Community. And you can ask questions on there. You can network with other like-minded individuals, as well as our Telegram chat. In our Telegram chat, we have announcements, and you can chat back and forth with your other trustees, and you can get your questions answered right away. So with the do-it-yourself, it's only $997, you guys. The next option is done with you. That is where we're going to do it together, and it's going to be on Zoom, and it's going to be in a workshop style setting. So what we do is we're going to meet for a week long, from Monday through Friday, from 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay? On Monday, we are going to set up the business trust together. I'm going to break down every single paragraph of that trust. So the business trust has 51 pages, you guys. I'm going to break down all 51 pages so that you can understand the contents of the trust, so that you can feel empowered and know how to actually operate this trust that you're going to be setting up, okay? So on Monday, we're going to set up the business trust, and then we're going to dive into Q&A. On Tuesday, we're going to set up the family trust, and then we're going to dive into Q&A. On Wednesday, we're going to set up the nonprofit trust, and then we're going to dive into Q&A. On Thursday, we're going to focus on having board meetings. I have seen it so many times where people are operating corporations and LLCs and they've never done a board meeting for their entity. We are going to show you the right way to operate your trust. So we're going to show you how to do board meetings as well as fill out promissory notes and how to actually set up business credit for the business trust, as well as how to get funding for the trust so that you do not have to use your W-2 income to fund the trust, okay? And then we're going to apply for EINs with the IRS so you can open up your bank accounts, and we'll show you step by step what that procedure looks like. And then on Friday, the very last day, we're going to focus on actually transferring your assets. That's the most important thing, you guys. So if you're transferring real estate, we're going to do quick claim deeds together. If you're transferring your vehicle, we're going to do the bill of sale together. If you're transferring your business into the business trust, then we're going to do a business purchase agreement. So you are properly documenting that the business trust is now going to have full liability for that company. And then we're going to do an amendment with the Secretary of State so that you can remove yourself from that business and put the trust there, okay? And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're inviting a guest speaker to come in, and she has over 13 years of experience in the insurance industry. She's going to come in. She is our infinite banking specialist. She's going to teach you everything that I quickly touched on today, dealing with the index universal life insurance policies and the whole life policies. That is where you're going to be building your cash value. That is where you're going to be actually creating that wealth by earning compound interest through the stock market, specifically the S&P. She's going to teach you everything thoroughly about that policy and how you can use it to eliminate debt and how you can use it to generate wealth, okay? And how you use it to where the trust is the owner of the policy, you are the insured, so we're insuring your life. The trust is going to pay the premium, and the trust is going to be the beneficiary if anything happens to you, okay? So we show you that whole entire process. And with that, you get accountability, you guys. So with Done With You, you get accountability. So we make sure that you actually set up your trust and that it's done the right way. You still get access to the course, the resources, the ebooks, the Facebook community, and the Telegram chat, right? And you get lifetime access to the workshops. So we do the workshops once a month. So you get to participate in the workshops every single time that we do the workshops. The accountability is the most important thing, right? Because after the workshop, you're going to book a one-on-one with me, and I'm going to review your documents to make sure that everything is correct before you print it out and notarize it and open up your bank accounts, okay? And you want to be in that type of environment, which is a group setting, because there's going to be other individuals on the call that are going to be asking questions that you didn't even know that you wanted to know. So you're going to actually learn more than versus doing it by yourself, okay? So the workshop Done With You is only $2,500. And then the last option is do it one-on-one. That is private sessions with me, you guys. So me and you work together privately to set up your business trust, family trust, and your nonprofit tax exempt trust. You get individualized support, you get extended support, and then we dive into wealth building, wealth creation. That is one of the most important components. So I literally hold your hand and we go through that entire process together, and you get the sense of security to know that your things are done the right way, okay? So the private sessions are only $10,000. And for the people that are on this call, you guys, what I'm doing is a special treat. I am actually offering 50% off for the next 48 hours. So you have until this time on Friday to use the discount code TRUST50 to get into the program, okay? Our next workshop is October 28th to November 1st, okay? And all you have to do is just go to the website. So here's our website. It's wealthytrusty.com. You could also call this number if you have any questions. You can email me if you have any questions, and then you can also visit us on social media. What I want to do now is I want to actually show you what the course looks like. I want to show you what one of the templates of the trust looks like, and then we're going to dive into Q&A because I want to be able to answer all of your questions. So let me show you what the actual course looks like. All right, so this is what the course looks like, you guys, okay? So remember I told you with the do-it-yourself, all three of the programs do come with the course, so you get access to extra training material, okay? So with the course, the first thing that we dive into after your induction is the trust entity. So you learn what a trust is, who are the grantors, trustees, beneficiaries, successors, protectors, the benefits of the trust, and the different types of trust. And then we dive into the actual tax exempt ministry trust. So you learn how to actually set this trust up. We go through the constitution, the bylaws, and how to apply for an EIN. Then you go through the family trust. And so you go through the declaration, the bylaws, how to apply for an EIN, how to set it up. The same thing with the business trust. And then we go into tax strategies so that you can be operating tax exempt and you know, how to avoid tax evasion. You don't want to do that. And then we go into asset protection. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take an inventory of your assets so that you know what assets are going to go inside of the trust and what assets are going to be left outside of the trust. Then you learn how to create bank accounts, brokerage, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, your companies, and do board meetings. And then we go into wealth creation, where you learn how to build business credit and how to invest that into the stock market and how to do infinite banking with the insurance policies. Then we go into wealth preservation, where you learn what a legacy crest is. And then we go into your resources. These are all of the resources that you're going to need in order to properly operate your trust. And then you get all of your bonus ebooks for the trust. So that is the course. And then what I want to show you is what an example of a trust looks like. So this is a template for the trust. Remember, I told you it's a contract. So this is 60 pages. So everything that you see in red is what you're going to be customizing for your specific trust and organization, okay? So this is what I break down in the workshops and in the courses so that you can customize it for your family, you guys, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to open up the floor to Q&A so that you can ask any and all questions that you have regarding any of the information that I went over today. So I know it was a lot. Go ahead and come off of mute if you have a question, or
I have a question.
go ahead,
Sorry.
Ramona.
All right. My question is, okay, once we sign up, are there fees to establish all these different things for the trust, the different trusts?
That's a good question. So you have to pay to get the trust notarized. So you can go to your local bank and they'll notarize it for free. Or you can go to, you know, like a UPS store or FedEx, and they'll notarize your trust. So that's one of the fees associated with it. The other fee is if you're going to go open up a bank account, you're going to have to fund that bank account. So I've seen certain banks that they require, you know, as little as $100. So it just depends on the bank that you choose. But after going into the program, there's no other fees. You're just going to go ahead and customize everything, print it out, get it notarized, open up your banks.
Okay, so transferring your name and amendment and all that stuff, there's no fees involved. It's just
So if you're transferring assets, there are going to be fees involved, right? Because they have to you have to redeed the property. So there are recording fees. Okay, so they are very small, $60, right? If you're going to put your car into the trust, then you have to do a bill of sale, and then there's going to be fees in order for them to retitle the property. So you're not going to be putting, you know, the entire value. What you're going to do is you're going to gift the property. And so so your recording fees are going to be based off of, like, you know, $1, right? Or a gift, or $0. And then for like the Secretary of State, there are fees involved. I've seen $25, I've seen $10, I've seen $50. So it depends on your respective state.
all right. One more question. So say if how do a person if they have a vehicle but it's not fully paid off? and
Yeah,
it's
so
almost paid
that's a
off.
really good question. So if you have a vehicle that mean and you have what we call a lien holder, that means that you do not have the title to that vehicle. You have to wait until you have the title to the vehicle for you to retitle the vehicle into the trust. If you don't want to wait, then you have to refinance that vehicle in the name of the trust. So you have to get an auto loan for the trust, refinance your car, and then your trust will then own the car.
Well, then I guess it sounds like it's better to wait because your name is not really in it at the moment. As far as the title is still by the company that is allowing you to have the car. Is that you're paying off? Is that what you just said?
So you don't have the title to the vehicle, right? Because you
Right.
have a lien holder. They're not going to
Right.
take the lien off of that car until that loan is
So
paid off.
got it. All right. Well, thank you for that. So I just know, when I sign up that I know that it might be a fee, so I could be, prepared when I get into the class.
Yeah,
That
abs-
okay.
absolutely. Yeah. So you're gonna go through the information and then just do it one by one, right? So I always tell people take it one step at a time, right? This is not a marathon, this is not like a race, like this is like a journey, right? So you don't have to just rush and get everything done. So, do what you can first, but definitely start with the assets that are valued the most, which obviously usually are our homes.
Okay, well, for me, only thing I have is, I guess if I think about it, is my business. My business. So I would have to switch that into into the trust name after I open up the trust. So there would be like a fee just to amend that, right, and change it into the trust name.
Yeah, it's a very small fee. So like in my state it's $25. I've seen it in
Okay.
other states where it's like $10.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. I thank you for that. That's the only question I had. I give the stage to whoever else.
All right, thank you. Okay, next I have India. And raising
Hey,
hand.
how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, okay, so I had three questions. Um, my first question is when you're donating, your income into the nonprofit, are you able to use that money eventually, or like it just has to sit in that profit? Is it discretional? Like, how does that process work?
Yeah, so what you need to know and understand is that you can take out loans from the trust. And so you can either 1099 yourself, but then you have to pay taxes on that money that you're taking out the nonprofit. You can put that money into investments and grow it, or you can take out a loan, request a loan as a trustee. You can request a loan from the nonprofit, and that's tax free.
Okay. Tax free. Okay. Second question. With the TCU breakdown, if you're giving out 100% of the trust certificates, is that depleting the trust, or is that just like the proceeds from the life insurance policy? Like how does that break down?
So it's only beneficial interest. So it's not depleting the trust. Everything's going to remain in the trust. And that is, all of those assets belong to the trust and that income belongs to the trust too. So it's discretionary if you want to be able to
Okay.
distribute income to those beneficiaries. But all it represents is that they have beneficial interest of that certain amount. So it really only comes into effect once the trust is terminated. Okay. Not while the trust is
Okay.
operational. Once the trust is terminated, then that 200,000 that we was talking about, right? The trust is terminated, it doesn't exist anymore. So that money has to go somewhere. It needs to go to the beneficiaries. And so the beneficiaries are going to be allotted that percentage based off of their TCUs.
Okay. And last question. How long does it take for you to build the business credit, a credit score in the business trust? Like if you're looking to, purchase real estate and things like that, how long would it take to build up that business credit, trust credit, I guess?
That's a really good question. So The name of the credit score on the business side is a paydex score. So your paydex score is going to be anywhere between 1 to 100. A really good score for a trust is 80. So you want to get to that 80. So it depends on the route that you take. You can go the fast route or you can go the slow route. The fast way is for you to be a personal guarantee and actually put up your personal credit in order to build credit for the business trust faster. Okay, so you'll leverage your personal
Okay.
credit and you'll get lines of credit. Or if you don't want to do that, then it's the slow route where you have to get net 30 accounts and you have to build up your trade lines. And that might take, so like the fast route, you could be as quick as like 30 days. The slow route, you could be as quick as like 6 months.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. I'll be definitely signing up for your course. Those are like the only 3 questions. I think the other questions I have is more so once I get in the course, I'll have the questions, but that was it. So I do appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you, India. Next we have Nia. Hey, Nia.
Hi,
How
how are
are
you?
you? I'm good. I'm good. You had signed up today, right?
Yeah,
Yay!
I'm sitting here listening to you live with a friend, and I had a
Uh-huh.
question. He had a
Okay.
question. Is that
Yeah, go for it.
okay? So basically, my question, somebody had asked earlier about like how much does it cost to set up. I had a question about the infinite banking portion of it. Like, does funding that or starting that the IULs and all that, how much approximately do you need to start with that? Also, like, does it matter the age? Like, if my parents are like 70 odd years old, like, does that matter? Because I know that sometimes has a factor in life insurances.
Yes, that's a really good question. So to answer your question, you can start with whatever amount that you want. So you can get insurance for as little as like, $100 a month, honestly. So it just depends on your financial status and how much you tell the agent that you want to be flowing in and out of your policy. Your policy is going to be structured specifically for you. Your policy and my policy are not the same policy, so it's customized. So your premium and my premium are not going to be the same amount. Okay, so you're going to structure it based off of your financial status and how much you want to put inside of the policy. Now, the younger that you are, the less is going to cost for the cost of insurance is, okay? So that means that your insurance is going to be cheaper. So that means you're going to have a lower premium if you're younger versus older. So for older individuals, it is going to be higher and more costly. So you just have to go through the process to see, one, if you get approved, and two, what your rate is going to be for the policy.
Thank you. And then one more thing about that. Does a disability matter or have a factor in the situation as well?
So they do require a medical, and if you have any prior medical like issues, then they will take it into consideration. It doesn't mean that you're going to be denied. They take people who have had a history of cancer, diabetes, who have other ailments. And so you have to, it depends on the carrier. You might get denied with carrier A and approved with carrier B. Okay, so we've seen that. So it just depends on the carrier and if they want to, issue you a policy or not based off of your pre-medical conditions.
Got it. Thank you so much. And my friend here, he has a question as well.
All right,
Thank you.
perfect. All right,
That's
thank you, Nia. And congrats to Nia. Nia just joined today. She just enrolled, so we want to say congrats. I'm super excited for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, how you doing?
Great, how are you?
All right, all right. My name is
Oh, I can't hear you anymore. I think you are on mute.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's pretty low though. Can you put the volume up?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear
Yes.
me now?
Yes.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
Great.
All right, all right. My
How are
name is
you?
Mark. I'm doing well, thank you. Um, my question is in regard to the houses, and like if you don't own your house free and clear, and how the trust structure can be used as a title for the home.
That's a really good question. So you
Okay.
own your house. Even if you have a mortgage, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean anything. That mortgage company, they have a lien on your house, but
Mhm.
you own your house. You have the deed to your house. So you can redeed your property from your personal name into the name of the trust. Okay, your mortgage is going to stay intact, and
Okay.
your mortgage is going to remain on your credit score if you have it on your credit score. And now the trust is going to have the financial responsibilities of that house, which means that the trust is now going to be responsible for paying that mortgage payment, right?
Correct.
Yes. And so what you want to do is, like, let's just say that you're using your W-2 income. Then you want to go ahead and put that money into the trust fund and then pay your mortgage payment from the trust. And you also want to change the utilities over into the name of the trust. So the trust is going to be responsible for the mortgage, for the taxes, for the
Mhm.
utilities, and the maintenance of the house now that you put the house into the trust.
Okay, for sure. So with all that being said, in an event the house is not paid off and the house is titled by the trust, um and it gets okay, it gets it my question is the equity protected as well?
Yeah, the equity is protected. So you can
Okay.
access the equity by getting like a home equity line of credit. But the equity is going to, remain intact. The value of the house is not going to depreciate just because it's in the name of a trust. So the equity is going to remain the same and it's going to continue to appreciate.
Okay, for sure. Thank you. Thank you for
You're
the
so
information.
welcome. Thank you for asking that good question.
All right.
All right, next we're going to move on to Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hope you are. To piggyback off the gentleman's question before, so when you put a deed the house over to a trust, that doesn't implement the due on sale clause, correct?
Correct, because due on sale clause is person to person, not person to trust. So you're protected from triggering the due on sale clause through one of the acts. It's the St. Garner Act.
Great. Thank you. And I just got a couple quick more and I'll get out your hair. So
You're not in my hair.
So with the like the business trust, the family trust, and the nonprofit trust, I'm assuming there's not a problem with getting multiple. You have to have multiple EINs and not just one.
That is correct. Each entity is going to have its own EIN. You can't use one. You can't use the entity. You cannot use the EIN for entity A if you're, doing business with entity B. Okay. So entity B
Okay,
needs its own EIN.
gotcha. Um, in regards to beneficiaries, who can I understand adding my kids and grandkids and their kids, etc. But if, for instance, my uncle or aunt or cousin or somebody, I want to add them to the trust, I can add anybody to a trust
Correct. You
as
can
a
add
beneficiary.
yeah, you can add anybody that you want to a trust. If you're creating the irrevocable trust, you cannot add the grantor.
Okay, so the grantor can't be a beneficiary of the trust if it's
Correct.
irrevocable. Gotcha.
Correct.
And then, sorry, can the trust create a 401k?
So the trust can be the beneficiary of the 401k.
Okay, they can be the beneficiary, and that was the
Yeah,
other part of it.
a trust can also do a like an IRA, like those type of retirement accounts, like a Roth
Gotcha.
IRA, a SEPTA, those kind of
Okay.
retirement accounts.
So with my job, I can name the trust as my beneficiary for my 401k, my
Absolutely.
insurance, life insurance, all that stuff, and then have it
Yeah.
put over to that. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yep. Those are all assets, and you need to protect those assets, and you need to have the trust be the beneficiary of those assets.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I
You are so
appreciate you.
welcome. All righty. Thank you so much, Chef. All right. Next, we have Roger.
Hey, Christina, how you doing?
I'm
I
great.
per
How are you?
Hey, I'm doing okay also. I purchased your ebook and I thought it was outstanding, very inspirational.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, one of the parts that got me was the distributions, from trust to trust, and also how you protected the one gentleman during the divorce with the property. So kudos, excellent information. I think you answered this question earlier, but I just want to make sure as far as how to apply for EIN for the trust. I know through LLCs, you go through the Secretary of State, and I think you mentioned you have to go through the IRS for EIN for the trust.
Yeah, you do. You have to go through the IRS, and then once you start the EIN application, they're going to ask you what legal structure is applying for the EIN, and you have to choose trust. And
Okay,
so
okay.
we teach you that in the program.
Okay, perfect. And I was wondering, do you ever leverage LegalZoom for any paperwork with the trust?
You
Like,
can
okay,
you can find like your own templates and stuff like that. So a lot of people, they'll get like personal agreements and stuff like that, between their personal assets and stuff.
okay. And then for the certificates of trust, I know you said it's like 100 certificates and, there's 20% distributions possibly. And I was wondering, is there templates for those certificates of trust to generate those?
So we do provide you with the certificate of trust in the
Okay.
program.
Okay, perfect. And an irrevocable trust. I know you were saying that the trust can last 100 years. Does that apply for the irrevocable trust or just all trusts?
Yes, it does. It applies for the irrevocable trust as well. So that's usually the maximum time that you want to allow for a trust to exist. And then once that 100-year mark comes up, at least 30 to 60 days prior to the expiration, you want to renew it so that it can then be active for an additional 100 years. So now your trust has been in existence for 200 years.
I got you. Thank you. You answered all my questions. Great job.
You're welcome, Roger. All right. Thank you for being here. Next, we have Dina. Hey, Dina, how are you? You're still on mute. All right, Dina, I can't hear you, so we're gonna come back to you. So next we have Ramona. Hey, Ramona.
Hey, okay, the next question I have is that some lady asked about the nonprofit, and then you said that if you take out money from there, you would have to uh owe taxes from the IRS or whatever,
No.
right?
Oh, so what I said was you can 1099 yourself. That's what I said.
1099 stuff.
I said if you want to take out money, meaning that you have rendered a service for the nonprofit, and you want it to be taxed, then you can 1099 yourself. Or if you want to take out money tax-free, then you have to request a loan from the trust.
Oh, I was gonna ask because I didn't hear the last part, taking out a loan. I was thinking, I'm like, well, can the trust then donate from its nonprofit to entity? Like, so can it donate to the trust and then I could have the money like that? Or is there another way that I could get it without being public or or paying fees on it? So I was like, that can I know you could donate to it. Can you donate
Yeah,
out of
but
it?
but we don't call it like a donation. Because the ministry trust is only going to donate to other charities and nonprofits and philanthropic endeavors. So you have to label it as a loan and you have to do a promissory note. We show you how to do the promissory note so that you can give loans to the trust and take loans out of the trust tax-free.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Ramona. All right, next we have Kanya. Did I say your name correctly?
Yes.
Kanya?
Can you hear me?
Perfectly. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing splendid.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I was introduced to you by my brother, and I'm so thankful. We inherited property through a trust from my father.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
and the thing is that I know nothing about it. Nothing.
Okay.
And of course, when you go to seek out information, it's like you only know what somebody tells you, and they never tell you everything.
Right.
So, I guess my question is, if I want to sign up for your one-on-one, what is the time frame? I know that I'll get all the class information that I can do on my own, but what is the time frame that we have access to do the one-on-one?
Yeah, so usually we'll do it anywhere between, like, 3 to 6 months of working with each other. And it
Okay.
also depends on like the assets that you have too. So I'm not the type to rush you. So some of my one-on-ones have been with me for like the last 8 months. So it just depends. So some of my one-on-ones, they have multiple assets. And like I said, this is not a race. We take it one day at a time, one asset at a time, one trust at a time,
Okay.
until we get your whole entire estate properly structured.
Okay. So, um, I know that on that one-on-one end, it was 10,000, but you said
Uh-huh.
it's 50% if we sign up in the next couple of days.
Yeah, if you sign up in the next 48 hours, it's going to be 5,000.
Okay. So is it ever like if we have to go 8 months, is it ever any additional cost to it? Or is it just a flat 5,000
No,
until?
it's a flat fee.
Okay, perfect. We'll be
Mm.
getting in touch with you and really looking forward to it, because when I tell you we've been I mean, it's just running here, running there. Who do you believe? What do you believe? So I really appreciate you. And shout outs to my brother King.
Hey, yes. Oh, awesome. Awesome.
And I
Congratulations.
signed up already, but I'm gonna sign up for the one-on-one, and so we're both gonna be involved.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. And I always tell family members, like, you want to do this together. You want to
Right.
invite them on the calls, because this is a family affair. You want to start establishing a family office and running your family like a business. So of
Correct.
course, include your siblings, include your beneficiaries, include any successors, include them in the education and training, please.
Yep, I definitely am gonna be forwarding them this call. I've already gotten the link. So I appreciate it. I
Yay.
look forward to talking to you.
Yes, me too. Congratulations. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for being here.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, next we have Carol. Hey, Carol.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you so much for providing this very beneficial information. I
You're
have two
welcome.
questions.
Yes.
The first one, I'm in Canada,
Uh-huh.
and I'm wondering if you have a service that provides this type of service for Canadians, taking into account Canadian law.
Yeah, so our trusts are domestic and they're for the US and for all the US territories. So we don't recommend it for any other countries outside of the US. And our program, we are going to be making available an international trust very soon. And with that international trust, then you can customize it for your specific country. So that's going to be available in January, if you want to check back with us at that time.
Fantastic. The other question I have is, do you recommend an IUL as well as an infinite banking insurance policy, or would an infinite banking insurance policy suffice?
No, so the infinite banking is the concept that you use with the IUL.
Okay.
Yep. So the IUL is the vehicle and infinite banking is the concept where you're becoming your own bank and where you're paying yourself first.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Carol. Thank you so much for being here and asking that good question. All right, next we have Ricky.
Yep, Ricky.
Ricky.
Peace
Awesome.
peace and blessings to everybody.
Yay.
First and foremost, I just want to thank you for your time and all of your knowledge. I feel like it's beyond monetary. It's so invaluable. I don't even know how to express my gratitude for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
The first question I have is, should I feel like I should be either transferring, I don't know if I can do that, my term life into whole life or the IUL that you mentioned? Can you
Yeah.
just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, it depends on your carrier if they will let you roll over your term life into a whole life. So some carriers do allow that. And they won't require you to do an additional like medical exam. They'll just go based off of the medical exam that you did once you got your policy, if you did a medical exam. So it depends on the carrier, and not every single carrier is the same.
Right.
So what I would tell you to do is to book a call with our insurance specialist, and she'll look at your specific policy and let you know if it's worth keeping, which sometimes she does advise people to keep it and then just to get something additional. And so they'll just have additional coverage. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. The other question I had was about co-ownership. So me and my mother own a house together, but it's not paid off. So is that still the same situation as redeeding it into the trust?
Correct, yeah. So with the new quitclaim deed, both you and your mother have to sign over that you want to gift the property into the trust. So it's going to require both of your signatures. So that's the same thing as if you were a married couple or anything. If you have multiple names on the deed, all of those people have to sign.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are so welcome, Ricky. Thank you for being here and asking that good question. All right, next we have Darsh.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. How are you?
Great, good, thanks. So, great session, a lot of good information. Really appreciate all the financials you've explained, very knowledgeable. I was just wondering, how did you gain all of this knowledge? It's pretty impressive. I'd heard elements of all of this from different sources, but you're able to weave it all together. So just wondering, how did you, and
yeah.
is it something we can also take that path, and what would you recommend?
Yes, that's a really good question. So I have done it through experience, to be honest with you. I started in real estate investing, and I have had upwards of 8 different streams of income and been in several different finance. I've diversified my income. So I don't put all of my money in one place. I put it in crypto, the foreign exchange market, the stock market, real estate, in various different vehicles. And my IUL policies, I have 5 IUL policies. And so I only teach based off of things that I do, right? So I have been a trustee for 9 years, and I've implemented everything that I've educated you guys on today. So I've learned through experience and through me actually doing it myself. As well as through mentorship. So I got my first mentor at 25 years old, and I have mentors right now that are, multi-millionaires, 8 figures, 9 figures. So I learned through mentorship, and I learned through actually doing it. So that's pretty much the answer. But
Great.
thank you. So yes, I do recommend that you guys apply the information, right? That is the most powerful thing, is not the knowledge that you acquire, but the knowledge that you actually apply, right? Because I've talked to so many people, I talk to hundreds of people per week, and they tell me, things like, oh, I've been learning about trust for the last 3 years. And it's like, why are you learning about trust for the last 3 years when you should have implemented it when you learned it, and now you could have been operating as a trustee for the last 3 years? So I don't want you to sit on the information. I want you to take action and start implementing the things that you're learning. So everything that I've taught you guys today, I only got 90 minutes in order to go over it, unfortunately. So that's why I go in depth inside of my course and inside of my workshops, so that I give you the step-by-step, instructions to implement every single sector of the wealth building formula that I provided tonight.
Okay, great. If I could just follow up, I already have a living trust, and most of my assets have been, transferred to that living trust. So how is this different from the private, family trust you have? Is it the same thing or is it different?
It's different. So a living trust is a revocable trust. Your assets are not fully protected. So in a living trust, you are the grantor, trustee, and beneficiary. And so it's actually seen as an alter ego. It's not seen as a separate entity from you. And so because it's seen as an alter ego, your creditors can come after your living trust, and your living trust can end up in probate.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. All right, next we have Mike.
Hello. I echo everyone's fawning over your this entire program. I just think it's great. We love you actually. So
Thank you,
um
Mike.
for sure. So a couple people asked some questions so that I was able to knock it down. But I have a question regarding an irrevocable trust. There was a beneficiary on it. One of them was a minor, but the name was changed. What does that affect their distribution?
So you have to constantly make updates. So if a beneficiary of trust, if their name changed due to marriage or due to guardianship, you have to notify the trustee. The trustee has to have a board meeting to update the name.
Even if it was irrevocable? Because
Yes.
then
Yes,
it was
the
a
trustee. So the irrevocability only applies to the grantor. The trustee can make changes to the trust as long as they deem that those changes are necessary. So do you think that it's
Gotcha.
necessary to update the legal name of a beneficiary?
No, actually we don't want to. It was something that it didn't want it to happen. So but that all of the assets would likely affect, and we don't want to have to like go and change the trust documents to have to compensate for someone who made a unilateral decision on their own.
Okay, so if that's what you feel, as the trustee, you operate the trustee, you operate the trust the way you feel fit. You're the fiduciary.
Got it. And then like a judge couldn't like order me to change it type thing?
No.
Is that what it's
So,
okay, yeah, that's
I'm
cool.
gonna tell you no, but then I'm also going
Yeah.
to tell you refer back to your indenture.
Got you. Okay. Um that's cool. So you mentioned somebody else had asked a question about transferring from a like term life to a but you kind of answered that, so I don't want to waste the time. How
Yeah,
about
and
if
if you have any questions
yeah,
about insurance, I would definitely
yeah,
tell you guys to book a call with our infinite banking specialist. I'm gonna put her
okay,
calendar on the inside of the chat.
got it.
Yeah, so because she'll be able to
Okay.
just, tailor everything to your specific situation.
All right, and then last question, or at least last one, in terms of assets, can a if you have like a home that's outside of the U.S., could you transfer it into, or would you recommend transferring it into the U.S. trust to get that same protection, or would it be able to benefit from that same protection?
So most likely it won't be able to benefit from that protection just because you don't know what the
Mm.
laws are in that specific country.
That's going to be probably for January, I guess, right? When you
When
have
we
the
have
international trust.
correct, and then you can utilize that.
Got it. And then the last one is just do any of these concepts work with, like, I'm a big crypto person. So do you because I heard the kind of the infinite banking concept, you could kind of do that same thing with Bitcoin if as long as you like hold it and you believe in its value. Do you do you recommend any of the you did just mention that you do crypto too. I think you
I
just said
do.
something like that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, is that
I
something
have money
incorporated?
in BTC. So what we do
Nice.
in the crypto world is you can have your brokerage be owned by your trust. So we use Coinbase. I specifically use Coinbase, and I have it in my entity name. I don't have it in my personal name. And so you can
Got
just,
it. Bro.
yeah, you can utilize it that way. Another thing that you can do that we do too in our community is if you have a wallet, then you can put that
Yeah.
wallet, that ledger wallet, inside of your trust. You have to list it as an asset, and now all
Oh,
of the
that's
assets
crazy.
inside of that ledger. Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. And so what about like those like large like if you're a whale, basically? Is that how that's how you would utilize Coinbase too? Because I'm a DeFi guy. I know about the ledger and everything like that. And but once you start really playing with some whale money, I kind of like the idea of that structure. Having, just having the because every bank has the FDIC limit of like 500 or something like that. But when you start getting over, it seems like this is that question that I always ask for the last 10 years. Like, how do you really protect money when the Fed decides to crash the market and then your money, including the IULs, like does that all of that is that still safe? Like when Jesus comes back type thing? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So,
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Yeah.
right. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
FDIC gives you insurance of up to $250,000. If you have $1 million in your account, you can kiss 750,000 goodbye. Okay. So that's the first thing.
Right.
The second thing is that you have your money is more protected inside of your insurance policy because they have more strict rules, right? So your money
Mm.
is fully protected inside of the policy. It's not like the FDIC, okay? That is only for these banks, and they have a system where they're using, fractional reserves. So your money is not even in there. I'm telling you, they're pimping it out to the highest bidder.
Right.
So
I'm telling you,
um
that's crazy.
yeah, so another strategy that we use if you're a whale is to have our crypto be in our ministry trust. So
Nice. I like that.
a lot of our crypto guys in our community, that's what they do. They put their brokerage and their Bitcoin and their USDT and all that stuff. They put it
Right.
inside the
Right.
ministry trust, the nonprofit. So you might want to adopt the same strategy. That's why I tell you it's so important to get into the community, because you have access to like-minded individuals that are crypto heads, just like you, that are doing this and been doing this. Like some of our crypto professionals been in for 1 or 2 years, and they've, they're heavy with it. So, and we have traders in our community. They are trading for us actually. And they are like giving us double-digit returns. So we're making like 20%, 30% in a month's time because we leverage our community members. So,
Sounds exciting.
yeah, so we don't teach this strategy inside of the program specifically on crypto, but you will learn it from your fellow, individuals. Like you should see the Telegram chat. It's wild.
All right, so I'm definitely all right, so I'll leave. I'm sorry guys hogging the time, but I'm definitely interested and you'll definitely be hearing from me. I think this is the way to go. Way to go.
Hey,
Thank you.
Ramona said, keep the questions coming. All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you. All right. So
All right, no problem.
let's check on Dina. Dina, are you here with us? Because she off mute.
I
Wait.
am.
Okay,
I
she off mute.
apologize.
Perfect.
Yes, I did. I apologize because I was driving.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I was driving, so my phone, you know how it is when it connects to CarPlay. So I
Mhm.
apologize to you and
No
everyone.
problem. I know how that is when I'm driving too. Absolutely. You can't get off mute to save your life.
Right. That's exactly what happened.
Yep. All right. So what's your question, Dina? How are you?
Okay. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I have a few questions. I cut it down because I'm thinking for the workshop or the one-on-one. So my first question is, I purchased a home when I was young, and I had hardships, of course. That was like 20 something years ago. And so I do have some liens on the property. Do you recommend me still putting that property in a trust? or can I do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, you can put that house into a trust even if you have liens. Protect that property.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? You said I could put it in.
Yeah, I said you can put that property into a trust even though you have a lien. So
Okay.
those liens are going to sit there and collect dust, but that property is going to be protected in the event that those creditors, those lien holders try to come after your property. So put that property into a trust.
Okay. Now let me ask this. If I wanted to purchase another one, do you recommend it all going in the same trust, or do you do a home per, like a trust per home?
It depends on your strategy if you want to put a home per trust. So best practice is obviously one asset per trust. So if you want you know, your structure to be as robust and complex as that, then go for it.
Okay. And does Medicaid, Medicare, let's say, do they do look back on trust?
So there is a 3-year look back.
Okay.
So yeah, so it just, you know, depends on that particular, you know, scenario.
Okay. And so what I wanted to ask, because actually I had paid one of the persons, like let's say that's online, and honestly I paid for the service, but they never answered the questions and never really gave full detail. Do you, let's say we first of all, how long is your workshop? Like let's say the group workshop, how long does that go for?
The group workshop is 1 week. We get everything done in 1 week, Monday through Friday, 11 to 2. Sometimes we go over, we answer every single question. I put it on my life that I do not end the Zoom until every single question is answered and there's crickets. You have lifetime access to the workshop, so you can jump into every single workshop that we have, and our community members do that. They attend multiple workshops for retention purposes, okay? You're going to learn more if you hear it 2 and 3 times. And with the workshops, we do have recordings, so you get to go back and re-listen to what you missed if you couldn't attend the entire 3 to 4 hours. What else I wanted to tell you about the workshop? I think that's it.
And even the one-on-one, that's lifetime sort of mentorship as well.
So the one-on-one is we're going to structure your entire estate. Once your entire estate is structured, then all you have is extended support for any questions or anything, you know, that will happen. So I set up your 3 trusts for you. I notarize them, I ship them to you, right? So you're not going to go, once we set up your 3 trusts, it like 1 year down the line, if you want to set up another trust, it's not included, right? Your 3 trusts, your structure is already set up. We have extended support for any questions or assistance that you need.
Okay. Do you charge for the extended support? Like,
no.
Let's say it's a couple years later. No. Okay. And that applies to the group and
No,
the group and the one-on-one.
No, extended support is only for one-on-one.
Okay. Only for one. Okay. And I think that's about it. I'll hold my other questions for, you know, when we really start. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Dina. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next we have E.
Ms. Ryerson, how are you?
Hi, Miss Ryerson. How are you?
It's been a long time. Good, good.
Perfect.
I had a question in regards to, I just found out that I might be getting a house deeded over to me. However, I get Social Security disability. So would that interfere with me having the home to put it in a trust?
So, are you able to get that house deeded straight into the trust and not to you?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Yes. So are you able to get that home deeded straight into your trust and not to you?
Okay. Yes, I could do that. I
That
can
is the
have the
best.
person,
Yes,
sign it over
to
and
the
sign it over to the trust.
correct. Yes, that's the route that you want to go. And you don't want to put it in your name for then to you to then put it into the trust. Have it go straight to the trust.
Okay. All right. Okay. Even though it's not in the same state that I'm in?
Correct. Yeah. So with these trusts, they're domestic. You can use it in all 50 states.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Next we have James. Hey, James, how are you?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good, good. So I just had a few questions. And I think the person before last kind of touched on it. So the with the one-on-one, um, it's just one-on-one, and anything you need after that is just what you call that, extended support. You don't have access to the to the workshops if you ever want to refer back to
You
something.
do. You do.
You
You
do?
have, yeah, with one-on-one, you have everything. You have the course, you have the community, you have the resources, ebooks, and you have lifetime, and that's lifetime access. And then you have lifetime access to the workshops. So you can attend all the workshops. You have
Okay.
extended support, and I do everything for you.
Okay. So another thing too, how does that work? Because with your workshops, I noticed you normally during the day from like what, 11 to 2, correct? Somewhere around there.
Yes.
So I'm a person, typically work 12 hours a day, so that's kind of hard for me to do that. So with the one-on-one, how does that work? Do we just whatever time works for you type thing and schedule it out?
Yeah, whatever time works for you. So we just go based off of, a mutual schedule that we both, agree on. So
Okay.
yeah, it could be the evening times. So I mean,
Oh, okay.
I've picked up phone calls at 1 o'clock in the morning. So it
Oh,
just
wow. Okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
I watched a few of your videos. I saw your private video, something about you don't work after you go from 9 to 2, and after 2 is personal time. You don't it's for your kids. You don't work after that. So I was
Mhm.
wondering how that worked.
Yeah.
So, but with the personal time, you sign up for that. You kind of work around that and
Mm. Yeah,
make do.
that's what the one-on-one is for.
Okay, I got you. And then another thing. So, I attended the free workshop. What you're doing right here, I did it last Wednesday, but and I went ahead and I signed up for the workshop one, the $2,500 one. But if I want to upgrade to the one-on-one, how do I go about doing that? Just because of my schedule, I just think it's going to be hard for me to get it, and I just want to be able to, be focused and retain everything. So I think one-on-one might be the best route for me. So how do I go about upgrading that?
Yeah, so just send me an email, and what I have to do is I have to send you an invoice for the difference.
Okay, I got you. I got you. I got you. Okay, and the email just on the email on the website.
Yeah, so it's info@7waystowealth.com. So you should have gotten emails from us already.
Yeah, I do. Yes,
Yep,
ma'am.
you
Okay.
could just press reply and then it'll come straight to me.
Okay, got you. Got you. Got you. Okay, that's it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's see. Next we have Adarsh.
Yeah, so follow-on question. So if it's an irrevocable trust, what I've heard is that the grantor has to walk away, right? They don't benefit, they can't take any benefits or anything. So how would this help the grantor? I can understand it helps the beneficiary down the low road, but how does it help the grantor access the trust for their benefit?
It's not supposed to. It's not designed to help the grantor. So the grantor creates the trust for the beneficiary. So that's why you don't want to be the grantor of an irrevocable trust. You want to be the trustee so you can control the assets, and you want to choose someone to be your grantor that's not going to access your trust. So the grantor is going to be locked out of the trust. So you don't want to choose someone that you want to benefit from the trust. Because that person, you're going to be locking them out of the trust. They cannot benefit, not even at death.
Okay. Is there a workaround if I want to put my assets in a irrevocable trust? Looks like it won't work for me, right? And until I'm closer to my deathbed or something, right?
No. So with an irrevocable trust, you want to choose someone else to be your grantor. You want to choose yourself as the beneficiary. I mean, as the trustee.
Okay. So I have to first transfer my assets to somebody else who's a grantor and then have them transfer it into the irrevocable
No,
trust?
no, a trustee can gift property assets to the trust. So you can do it directly.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. All right, next we have Dina.
Okay, I hit it again. I do have one last question. I apologize. So if I have a divorce pending, like I said, I did purchase my property before. I'm in New York City, so I did purchase my property before that. So he's not like, my ex-husband cannot obtain anything that way for the laws in New York. But am I able to, I saw different information, like when I look it up, am I able to open a trust not having a finalized divorce?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. So it's not going to protect you during the divorce because the divorce has already started.
Oh, okay. So I am able to proceed and open a trust, you're saying?
Yes, you can open
Okay.
up a trust, but it's going to be, external from the divorce. You can't utilize it now in the middle of a divorce.
And when you say utilize it, in what way?
Meaning, if you are going through a divorce, and let's just say that you had a joint property and that property is now in type of, in the middle of the divorce, right? So you're going through mediation and stuff about that particular asset. You can't open up a trust and transfer that asset into the trust while that asset is in this divorce proceeding.
Right. No, but nothing's joined. So that's what I'm asking. Everything is fully under my name. I never joined anything through the marriage or anything. So can I still proceed and be okay with that?
So are they looking at those assets, or is it included? So when you are doing your divorce and you have, your attorneys going through all your financials, is that asset listed?
Yes, I would say he's probably going to try to come against it. Yes.
So all the assets that are listed, you can't move them into the divorce. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, you can't.
You mean I can't move it into the trust?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I get tired.
All right. Next we have Shay.
Hello, how you doing?
Great, Shay. How are you?
I'm good. I was wondering, do the beneficiaries get taxed and who does the taxes as far as the grantor of the trust, or do the trustee do the tax responsibility?
So the beneficiaries have to pay taxes on their distribution. So it just depends on how many, what their distribution is. And the grantor is not responsible for paying any taxes. And the trustee is responsible for filing the 1041 for the trust. The trust pays its own taxes. So the trustee is not personally taxed for the trust income. The trust has to file a 1041 for its own income.
Okay, and if the children are under the age of 18, they still have to pay for the, they still will be taxed and have to file that as well? How does that go?
So it just depends on the threshold, the amount of money that's being distributed to them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what is possibly like the threshold for underage?
So it's over 12,500, or I think it's 12,800. It changes almost every year.
Okay, so anything over that, they'll have to pay taxes on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Shay. All right, guys. So what I want to tell you now is, one, get into the program, okay? So we did have a couple people who got into the program. I saw in India had got into the program. So congratulations for her. I see here, let's see. What's the other name? I lost it already. I think it was William. Got into the program. So the next thing that I want to tell you guys is, if you want to take advantage of the 50% off, but you do not have the entire amount to get in, then what you want to do is you want to put a deposit. So we do have a link. I'm going to put it in the chat here. So you can place a deposit for only $200 and that'll secure your position for the 50% off, and you can roll into a payment plan. Because like I said, the 50% off is going to expire in the next 48 hours, you guys. So you can access the replay to this webinar. It is on, somebody said, what's the discount code? The discount code is TRUST50 and the website is wealthytrusty.com. So we'll go ahead and put the website once again. So KH said, how do I join? Is there a link? Yeah, so you can go to wealthytrusty.com. They're going to put it in the chat. So this webinar is recorded, you guys. You can check the webinar out on YouTube. So all you have to do is just go to our YouTube channel. So we'll go ahead and put the YouTube channel in the chat, and you can access and rewatch the entire replay of the webinar, you guys, okay? So with that being said, thank you so much for being here tonight, asking those good questions. And all I want to tell you is to take action on this information, right? Because now you guys are generational curse breakers in your family. And so what you want to do is you want to utilize this to change the trajectory of your family, you guys, to change the lives of your kids' kids. And now you're going to be training them to be trustees of the trust. So with that being said, go ahead and take action on this information. Thank you so much, you guys. And we will see you guys, next week for our next webinar. You guys have a blessed and